Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacey St. John, and I am so delighted to spend some time with you today. Now, before we jump into this episode, I want to read a quote with you, or quote for you, I should say, that I recently read. This says, "We all suffer and we all triumph, and we all get to choose how we hold both." Such wise words come to us from award-winning actress Demi Moore. Now, in this episode, we are sitting down with Bindy Bringhurst, and we are learning all about her triumphs and her wins. But also we're learning about some very difficult times and how she pushed through. I can't wait for you to meet her. She is such a powerful story. So without further ado, let's jump into my conversation with Bindy. So today we are joined by Bindy Bringhurst, and we are going to talk about so many fun things. But before we jump in, Bindy, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
This is going to be so fun. I know you and I both do co-hosting and are passionate about helping others along their journey. So we are going to have lots of fun stuff to talk about. Before we jump in, let me just ask you, what drew you into short-term rentals and how did you get started?
Yeah, so I got started hosting my own home. And I mean, the truth is at the beginning, it was because I needed extra money. And I had traveled and stayed in a couple of Airbnb homes. And I was very inspired by that. It was when I was traveling in Brazil. So it was really special because I had an experience I would have never otherwise had I not stayed in an Airbnb home and had that connection to the host. So there was something about that was really, really special. Fast forward, needed some extra money, had just bought a house and figured, I wonder if I could rent this out. So that's how it started. I've always loved design. And I had just, I used to lean a little more into that. Now I've been humbled after meeting some really excellent designers and realizing that's not what I do. But I was a little more confident about my design skills back then. And I had just painted this wall that I was very proud of. And I loved the idea of sharing my home as well. So I think it was sort of that design edge that I had at the time, inspired by the previous travels. And so I was like, why not do this? And so did that while I was working full time. And then I very quickly fell in love with it. I think by our third or fourth guest, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to find a way to quit my job and do this full time.
Yeah. That's so fun. It's so funny to hear you mention, you were humbled once you've seen some amazing designs, because like you, I have done, my decor and design for my properties, but I have never claimed to be a designer, right? But I happened to go stay in one of my units last week, and I was chuckling a little bit because it was my third unit that I ever decorated. And I was like, whoa, clearly, first of all, I knew way less back then.
I know.
And at least we need a little love.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. We're similar because that's exactly, I did all of my own design in the early days. That's how I got my first couple of co-hosting clients, was because I was willing to do the design, not realizing I charged a little bit for it, but basically was giving it away, not realizing the massive deal I was giving these early clients. And they're like, yeah, sweet. We don't have to pay for a designer. And so it was fun because I got to just design and pretend I was a designer for a couple of years. But same, I have a couple of those properties still. And I'm like, that's an interesting idea.
Exactly. All right. So you started hosting in your own home, and I'm just curious, were you in a situation where you would see your guests, or were they in a separate section of your home? What did that house hack look like?
So I rented it out as an entire home, and the guest interaction was pretty minimal. I remember in those early days, and this is something that I'm trying to find different ways of getting back to, even though maybe I wasn't seeing the guest, there was a lot more messaging back and forth, a lot more, where should we go? Or here's a photo of us hanging out in your pool, that sort of stuff. But no, I would rent it out as an entire home, and I would go and stay with my parents. They lived an hour and a half away. I was bumming around to friends' houses. It was a very scrappy time in my life. Not something I think I would repeat, but it worked then. So I did. It was important to rent out the whole house because you do earn so much more that way. It wasn't like a guest house situation. So
Got it.
now, and then also while I was traveling. So while I was out, would rent it out. So yeah.
All right. Now I have a question for you because I do know several other people who have taken the same approach. I candidly have never done that, or I've never rented out my own house. So I'm looking around my house and seeing all my own, decor, the things that I'm like, okay, I got trophies over there and I got a picture of my kiddo over there. What was your approach on what you left in the property versus took down as part of your, personal stash of decorative items?
It's a good question. I think it's important. I don't know if somebody told me this or if I made it up somewhere along the way, but this idea that when someone's staying in your home, they want to feel like they're staying in a vacation home, not a stranger's home. And so I took that to heart early on, where it was like, it's a little creepy staying in a home with somebody else's photo on the wall. Like that's a little weird. So I did take down, I just like swapped out some of the frames so that there weren't like photos of me or photos of my parents, and just swapped them out with like, some decor type stuff. And I did consolidate all of my clothes and everything to one closet. I didn't lock it away. I mean, this was in 2017. So this is like, there really wasn't a way to do things. I feel like now there's sort of known strategies and things that to do. And that just wasn't the case back then. But I did consolidate everything to one closet. I really, during that phase, and I'm still kind of like this, I love being a minimalist and trying to see, just get rid of the excess and just how good that feels to just have what you need. So I did really like that about it, is it was really always a challenge to only keep what I really needed and keep that all consolidated. But I will say it did take a toll. I mean, I was married at the time to my ex-husband. I'm remarried now, but I was married to my ex-husband, and it was, it's just interesting because I think the truth is, I mean, it's been a lot of years now, so I can look at it with different set of eyes, that I think it really took a toll on us and on our relationship because we didn't have a home, and we were constantly moving. And we both really loved this idea of a nomadic lifestyle and the freedom that came with that, and how we could make money in our sleep, and how we could I remember one trip we went on a 2-week vacation to Hawaii while we had some of our highest paying guests. And that was just an incredible feeling and felt so liberating. But, I think we were a little unrealistic about the fact that like, you do need a home. You need a home. You need a place to put your stuff. You need a place that you can return to. And there were many nights that like, thankfully between parents and friends, like there was always somewhere we could go. But there were a lot of nights where we just like, we didn't really know where we were going to sleep. And that is hard. And it takes so much energy. It's exhausting. And yeah, I think there were some hard lessons learned there. No regrets, honestly, because I think it was a journey I had to go down. I mean, we were young 20s, but gosh, yeah, wouldn't do it like that again. I learned the hard way. Like, you need a home. There's a reason why we have homes.
This is very true.
I had to learn that the hard way. Simple lesson, but I had to learn it the hard way.
So talk to me about the transition from, okay, we're living this nomadic lifestyle and kind of bopping all around, to, okay, Brindy has a home again.
Yeah.
And you're now helping other owners, and perhaps you have other properties in your portfolio.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what that transition looked like.
Yeah, it was a long transition. It took a few years. So that was in 2017 when my ex-husband and I started renting out our own home, and then was working full-time for a tech startup that I continued working for. And it wasn't until 2020 that I quit that full-time job. And I quit that job. I found a co-host through Airbnb's co-host network, which they did this for like a very brief period of time. They launched this co-host network, which they've now relaunched, as we know. But this was like their first iteration. And I think it was only up for a few months. But I had caught wind of it somehow. I found this one guy on there who was looking for help hosting out this apartment. And he's still one of my clients today who I still co-host for. But he told me he had 12 properties on the way that I was going to need to co-host that for him. And I started doing the math, and I'm like, man, I can quit my job. Like this, they were all small units. So none of them were bringing in a ton of money, but it was still enough that I was like, I can quit my job. And so I did. I quit my job in January of 2020, thinking that these units were all on the way. And then we all know what happened later in 2020. Right. The world changed. Those 12 units never came. I did end up with, I think, 4. The others never came. I was barely getting by. I had no overhead because I didn't have a team. I didn't have, I didn't even have software at the time. I was like real simple operation. And so I remember, and I just paid off my car, and I remember doing the math, and it was like, I can live pretty comfortably off of $1,200 a month. I was renting a room out of my ex-boss's house. So that was how I found my kind of temporary home, was renting a room out of her house. I had just paid off my car. I had just gotten divorced. Sorry, I'm kind of hopping around a little bit. Hopefully you can follow. But I just gotten divorced. And so 2020 was like, I'm just going to make it work. Like, I'm just going to make this work. And really felt like at that point that I had kind of figured it all out, which is really funny to think about now because it was not figured out. But it was how I got my start co-hosting. And it was how I got these 4 properties. One of those I'm actually still hosting a little condo, but the other ones were such simple properties, bringing in so little money, but it was enough to get me through. And it was more than anything, that was sort of my education of like my crash course of co-hosting. Yeah. And it did give me a lot of confidence. I learned so much, like just between those 4 properties, we encountered every problem you could possibly encounter. And so I learned a lot. And then I just kind of stayed in that spot for a while. I ended up finding another couple clients here and there. I was doing some design projects where I would, charge not enough to design someone's house. So it was enough to get me through. And that's kind of where I stayed for the next 2 years or so. I was growing. And as we know, that time, the end of 2020 and 2021 were incredible years for Airbnb. So, I was continuing to make more and more money, and that felt very exciting. Still super lean, no team, no overhead. And then it was in 2022 that I was starting to think, this isn't exactly what I signed up for. Like, I thought this was the dream to quit my job and have this freedom and be able to do this, but this isn't it. Like at that point, I don't know, probably had 6 or 8 properties, and it was just like so much guest messaging, felt just kind of trapped. And like, there was no part of me that was going to go back to a 9-to-5 job, which had always sort of been the thing that, hey, if it doesn't work out, I can always go back. Cause I liked my job. So it was always like, hey, I could go back and get a job. But at this point I had tasted
that ship has sailed.
That ship sailed. And so, that was a really interesting experience because I didn't expect that to happen like that. But that was not an option. But I also what I was doing wasn't working either. And I needed more money. Like I wasn't going to, I was still kind of doing this weird nomadic thing. And so I got serious about looking for clients that were really a fit for me. Cause up until then I was just in that mode, which it sounds like so many co-hosts have gone through, where you just say yes to anything that crosses your plate. Like, yes, I'll do that. Like that weird little hotel. Yep. Okay. I'll do it. And not realizing how much energy that costs and just how much it really can kind of set you back in the long run. Yeah. And so I got a lot clear on the types of homes that I needed to be successful. I got a little bit of help. I didn't hire any employees, but I did find a couple of people who I could pull in to just help with some of the running around. And 2022 things started to shift. And then I did hire my first employee part-time the end of 2022. And that's when things really started to feel like
real.
I've got business. I've got a business. Like this is a real business. This isn't just me like running around. Although there were a lot of challenges in the early days of working with that first employee too. I'd say it wasn't until actually like early 2023 when I got an accountant. That was a shift for me. She was so helpful in helping me just even see my business as a business and take it seriously in a way that I didn't think to do until then.
Mhm.
And by then, like, I was making good money. Like it was
Mhm.
working. Like it was working, but also it wasn't sustainable. And I was a single point of failure for almost everything.
Mhm.
So a lot
Mhm.
needed to shift. And so
Yeah.
now to today, we're a team of 4. We have 28 homes all over Arizona. And I feel like right now I'm in like a really sweet spot where I know it's not going to be like this forever, but like our team is just awesome. Feel like so supported, and I get to do the job that I want to do. Like I'm not chasing my tail every day. It's like I get to decide which part of the business
Mhm.
I want to be involved in and focus on that, and then have a team that I can pull in on different parts. And that's the last, like, but that's really only been the last 6 or 8 months that have felt like that. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting. I have
yeah,
so many things to ask you about, so much to unpack. Okay.
yeah,
So the first thing I want to ask you, I want to go back
yeah,
to the early days when you decided, I'm just going to make it work,
yeah,
right? Where you quit your job. Obviously, the 12 properties didn't come.
yep,
So often folks try to make it work. And I write about this in Live Big, the difference between committing to your goal versus trying to accomplish your goal.
yeah,
So I just want to ask you about when you decided, I'm just going to make it work. What was your thinking? If you can remember, what was your
yeah.
mindset? How did you come to that realization?
Yeah, I love that question. It's such an interesting time in my life. Like, it was a really hard time in my life. I had just gotten divorced. Like, it was a weird moment, but I also remember feeling just really confident that I could do this. And
Mhm.
not like the crazy confident, like the like quiet, steady, like, I got this. Like, I
Mhm.
know I can do this.
Mhm.
And it's really the first time in my life. I got married quite young. Not that that matters, but I guess it's just my life up to that point had sort of just been like just doing what was put in front of me, not really
Mhm.
me choosing to do anything.
Mhm.
And this felt like it was really like the first moment in my life where I was choosing to do something that I wanted to do. And it was just very much this feeling of, I know I can do this. And I had just read the book Big Magic by
Mhm.
Gilbert. Yeah, do you know that book? It's really good.
I
Big
do
Magic.
not.
It's really good. It's I just read Big Magic, really inspired me. That was just basically like, if you have an idea and you think it'll work, like, just commit to it and it'll work. Like, it will happen. And so that was my mindset, was just
Mhm.
full belief, full belief. And honestly, there's been so many times that I've thought back to that version of myself and like tried to get myself there again, because I
Mm.
haven't experienced that same amount of confidence.
Mhm.
It's something that, it was a unique moment in time where I just really
Sure.
had it. There was a little bit of, I'm going to show everybody that I can do this. I mean, from the outside looking in, I was kind of a pathetic case at the time. I had just gotten divorced. Like, I was far from like anybody that somebody would want to be at the time. But
Mhm.
I didn't feel that. I felt like I was very aware that that's how it looked. But
Sure.
I had this like fire inside of me that was kind of like, I'm going to show them. Like, I'm going to show them, which
Mhm.
I've learned, you want to kind of move past doing anything for
For
anybody
anybody
else.
else.
I
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
say, at that moment I think that's very much a in your 20s sort of a thing
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
I do think that that was helpful. And, the way that my marriage ended was a little bit messy. And I think there was a lot of me that was like, I'm not who people are making me out to be,
Mm.
and I'm something else. And it did kind of feel like my business was a way to show
Mhm.
that to people. And
Sure.
since then, my own mom, who actually works in my business now, she's one of our team of 4, and that's been like one of the most amazing things.
I love it.
I'm really grateful that she didn't say anything at the time, but she did say, like, a couple of years later, once my business was actually working, she's like, yeah, I was really worried about you. Like, you quit your job. And it was a good job. She's like, you quit your job. You had no money. Like you were just divorced. Like I thought you were losing it. And I've had a couple of other friends kind of say the same. And I was like, well, thank you guys for not totally tearing me down. I mean, I think I did pick up on some of that, which is what created that fire of like, I'm going to prove them all wrong. But yeah, so I think now that's not my motivation. But there was something about that I think it was just, I believed in myself. I really did. I think like in the short of it, I believed in myself and I wanted to show everyone that I wasn't what maybe they were making me out to be for that.
I love that. I love that. I mean, self-belief, what we believe is what we can achieve. And, the power of the mind is so incredible. And so often people actually have their brains working against them instead of for them, right? And so I'm a huge proponent of training your brain for success.
Yes.
Having your brain actually work for you instead of against you. I'm curious, looking back now, I know you said, hey, I don't know if I still have that level of confidence.
Yeah.
When you do have flutters of fear or when you do question yourself, and everybody does that, we're all human.
Yep.
How do you return to a state of confidence? Is there anything that you do to push through that fear?
Yeah. So the big difference between my life and how I operate now versus then is back then I was just go, 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 go. Really no sense of what it meant to slow down or to pause. I remember thinking like, I didn't even know how to like sit on the sofa. Like I remember thinking like, I haven't sat on a couch for like, I don't know how long. I don't think I had one, but it was just, I had no rhythm in my life for like pausing and stopping. Like I didn't know how. And almost like it was unhealthy. It was a little bit manic sort of energy. And now in my life, it's taken years, but the last couple of years, I move a lot slower and I just bring a lot more moments in my day to allow me to move slower and to pause and reflect. And so like one thing, this, like when I get worked up and when my heart starts racing or I get worried that I can't do something, I will just stop, lay down. I don't take a nap because that's pretty hard for me to do, but I will just close my eyes. And I guess you could call it meditating. I think I stopped calling it meditating because if I called it meditating, it felt like I wasn't. It's just, I'm literally just like time out. I'm just closed my eyes.
Yeah.
And that helps me so much. It's like the simplest thing, but it's just like, I'm not like, this is a choice. It's a choice to get worked up right now. And I think that's really the huge thing that I learned is that like, your response, like your emotional response to something that's very human, but those emotions, like I, at some point learned that they really only last like 90 seconds in your body. And after that, it's like, it's a choice. If you're hanging on to it, that's a choice. And so that's something that I really try and practice where it's, I'm worked up and upset about this. And I mean, I do it just last week. I had a situation with one of our clients that got me really worked up. And I really had to take a step back and tell myself, Brindy, you're like, this happened hours ago. Like you're making the choice to be frustrated right now. So, and then I think going for a walk, closing your eyes, just closing the computer, just doing anything else helps so much. And then the other thing that has been so important for me is I am not in the 5 a.m. club. I am big about slow mornings. Like for me, that just, it's everybody, you got to learn like your own code to get yourself operating. For me, it's like, I need lots of sleep. So I let myself sleep in a little bit and I just take my mornings super slow. So like the first hour of my day, I try really hard not to look at my phone, not to do any work. I mean, sometimes I'm just, looking at my dogs and telling them how cute they are. Other times I'm like journaling or reading, but like, I don't care what I'm doing, but I'm not working. I'm not like going into that got to get it done mode. Right. And then it's still in me. So after that, I get into that mode of like, oh, got to get it done. And I get like on the rat race again. But that at least it's not incessant. It's not just
Sure.
like hour after hour,
Sure.
day after day, day after day. So I think those things, and exercise for me is like, it used to be very much more of to have my body look a certain way, but now it's like, it's just, I just need it to.
You like how it makes you feel. And
Yeah.
it's amazing the creativity that comes out of our minds when we exercise. It sounds so silly,
Yeah.
but it's very true. And it's scientific, right?
Totally. It has like a way of just kind of putting everything in its place. And I really like exercising at like the end of the day, because it's also like a good stopping point. Because if I know, like, otherwise I will just kind of keep pittering, like, on the same stuff. So, and I always, right when I get like a routine that I really like, I kind of switch it up again. But I think those are things that if I'm consistently having my slow mornings, consistently working out and able to take breaks here and there, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. I think it's so important to, as you mentioned, pause, take a step back. When I was in the corporate world, I would find myself feeling stressed out all the time.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of funny. I would be in different positions and different roles in different situations. And I would go, wow, what is it? Why is there stress all around me? And I thought it was everything around me.
Yeah.
And so I learned that, I can control my reaction. I can, again, make a choice of whether or not I'm feeling stressed. And learning to control my mind in those stressful situations was a learning curve. But I will share with you, it's one of the biggest gifts you can give to yourself to learn those practices. And I wrote about several of the exercises that I have done, not physical, but actual mental exercises in my book, because I feel like if people know how to do that, like, it is life-changing.
Yeah.
It is life-changing.
Truly. And I think it's all very simple, but sometimes we have to be told, hey, it is that simple. Like, it is like, here's how simple the exercise can be. That's cool. I want to read your book now. That sounds
There you go.
Yep.
All right. So I want to ask you about your team. So you mentioned your first team member came in 2022.
Yep.
What was your first hire?
So my first hire was like, I had started dating my now husband. And, when I started dating him in early 2022, that was sort of like my wake up call, where it was like, okay, I want to be able to go out to dinner go on a date. Like, up until then, the people I'd been dating, it was nice to have this excuse of like, my business, gotta go, And I started dating him, and it was like, man, I want to like have this time. Like, I want this. And at that point, I think I was probably maybe at like 10 or so, I really can't remember, but maybe it was like 10 properties or so. And I was onboarding a couple of other ones, and I was spread so thin, like that was like a near breaking point. It was too much, and I did not know how to say no. And honestly, those properties, the couple that I was bringing on, I was so excited about. One of them to this day is one of my favorite homes. One of my most aligned homes with like me and my business. And so I was so excited, but it was just too much. And I was doing it all alone. And so I was actually in Newport Beach setting up a property, Newport Beach, California, setting up a property for that very first host that I talked about early on. Everything's in Arizona, but he had bought this property near the beach in Newport. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And so my, then boyfriend, I kind of invited him to come along. I kind of needed some help retrieving packages, assembling furniture, how it all goes. So he came with me, and I was like, it was such a fun time, but it was so beyond stressful. And he had met up with one of his friends randomly who lived in Newport Beach, and I was just done. Like, all I could talk about was how stressed I was. And his friend said, you need to call my girlfriend. Like, my girlfriend is somebody that I think could really help you. I think, and it was very weird. So I was like, yeah, I'll call your girlfriend. It's like very strange. But he started talking more about her and was like, she's working for this other person. basically she just had a really good background for short-term rentals and even some of the design that I was doing. And he said, I think she might be actually a really good fit. Like, let me give you her number. So he said enough that was like, okay, I'm interested. And there were other things that had lined up that day it was just one of those days that was like, all right, I'm listening. Like this is too much to just be coincidence. Like, I think something's falling into place here. And so I called her a couple days later and we just talked over the phone, and we just clicked immediately. And I will say it was a mistake to hire like I did. I would say this to her face. She still works with me today, and she is just such an important part of the team. But I basically hired her on the spot after a 10-minute phone conversation. I was so desperate for help. And once I just learned about some of her background and just how easy it was to communicate and connect with her, I'm like, boom, you're hired. And what I should have done is had a job description, let her know, here's what the job is. Do you want this job? Right. I should have done more of a proper interview, maybe even pulled in somebody to interview her from another perspective and just get a little more information. It would have helped both of us, because I will say those first few months were pretty tough. I was just sending her on wild goose chases of here's my incredibly long list of things that I'd like help with. And I think her head was just spinning. And honestly, I was kind of like, well, why can't you just do it? But it was all the list of things that I hadn't been able to get done for months and months and months. So it was sort of like, I wasn't setting her up for success. And it was the first person I had ever managed. And so anyway, I brought her on. I paid her $500 a week for a part-time to help with guest messages, run around to properties, do different stuff. And it did alleviate a lot of pressure. And it did make a difference to now have somebody that I could, it felt like I did sort of in some ways have two of me. But it wasn't until we had to learn how to work together. And I did read the book. Another one I read, Radical Candor. That was a big one for me. I definitely was going through quite a phase there where it was like, she just has to learn, or she just has to do this different. And then I read that book and was like, oh, okay. I can see how maybe I'm not the easiest manager right now, or I'm not the easiest or even most pleasant. And I think that was tough for me, because I really like to think of myself as a pleasant person to be with and work with. But that's not the only, just because you have a good demeanor, that's not enough. You can be a miserable person to work with if you're not giving someone enough to kind of go off of. So, but we worked, just her and I, together for a whole year before I brought on, I guess it wasn't quite a year, 6 months or so. Then I brought on that accountant, and that really started to shift things. And she really, she actually was a friend. So I break all the rules and do business. No, I think it's a great way to do things. And I love her, both in our friendship and in our work relationship. She's just one of these that can be brutally honest and just tell you right to your face, this isn't working. And she looked at my business and was like, this is good. This is not good. This is good. This is not good. This is what we need to get rid of. And this is what we need more of. And she really affirmed to me, you have a business, just let's do more with it, Right. And so and then I brought on my mom, and she at first was just, I guess now she's still just doing, not just because it's a huge part of the business, guest messaging, but also, just, she does a little bit of bookkeeping stuff as well. But my mom really does bring in that mother energy. She kind of feels like the glue for the team in a way. And then I brought on Julia, part-time, and she's still part-time, and she's kind of taken on a project management role, but she also does guest messaging. So we do all of our guest messaging in-house, which at one point, that was a big decision, because everybody I knew was going the route of virtual assistants. And I think you just have to know what every business is a little bit different. I had kind of gone that route, and it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working for us. And so we went this route instead. And so the four of us, well, I don't really do much messaging now. Those three pretty much handle it all. So they split the messaging, and everybody's kind of got their lane and their superpower, the thing that they do. Kylie is super good at going around and running around to the properties and making sure everything's looking great and like the real hands-on stuff. Where Julia's a lot more tech focused and a lot more like behind the scenes and a lot more project management. Like her brain is so organized. And that was humbling because I thought I had an organized brain. And then it was like, oh, I don't. Julia has an organized brain. Like that is incredible. And she actually was the one when she came in, we did a little team retreat just a few months ago. It's hard to believe because it feels like a lifetime ago in some ways. And she was like, we need like a task system. And I had tried different systems and they just like didn't work and was like, oh, I'm paying too much money, cancel it. Like we just could never get the buy-in. And so Kylie and I were basically operating out of Google Docs and iPhone notes. Like that was like how we were keeping track of maintenance items and, and that was another thing that I think Kylie was like, this is and not pleasant because it was hard. Sure. There was no sense of like, what did we get done? And so Julie was the one that was like, we need a task system. Like, and we started using Monday.com and that was all her. She was the one that was like, I think I've used Monday before. I can help set it up. And I was just like, wow. And it was so cool having that come from her and not from me. And I feel like just something about that allowed for so much more team buy-in, which was like, rather than, because I had kind of given up because I had tried these other systems and was just like, I don't know. I just don't know. And so that's kind of one of those moments where I was like, dang, there is magic in having a team. And that's where we are today. Sorry, I went off a different direction.
No, it's so interesting to hear that journey. And, I think it's so important not only to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, quite honestly, who have different skill sets, different experience that you can tap into, to hack into their knowledge, right? Yeah. And at the same time, as leaders, as business leaders, it's critical for us to learn skills about how to be a good business leader. And that, like you said, you can be the best person in the world. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you have the skills required right now to lead a team. So first of all, I just want to say kudos to you for figuring that out, right? I think it's so important that we realize as business leaders, okay, I'm there for my team and I want to get their feedback. I want to get their buy-in. I want to get their ideas. And at the same time, as business leaders, our job is to support them and to remove roadblocks. How can I make their job easier, right? Yep.
Absolutely. And just really see it through their eyes. Like I do look back and there was such a chapter there where it was just like, why isn't it happening like I want it to happen? And just in a spot where it was really hard to take accountability for that. And it's like, it's my business. Like I'm the one that like, it's my fault. Like it's my fault if it's not working, and to a certain extent. And I think that was an important lesson. Yeah.
It's so important. And again, sometimes we have to, I call it alligator skin, have thick skin, because I love to have conversations with my team about, okay, what can I do to make your life easier? What is not working? Give me the scoop. Yeah. And when they have a laundry list, right? It can be like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. But again, just keeping the right attitude about it. It's like, I appreciate that feedback.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Because if I didn't turn things around, this valued person might find employment somewhere else. Right.
Absolutely. Exactly. And, and there has been, and this is kind of new now that we've had this last season of this really good feeling sense of team, where I'm, it's one of those moments where I'm like, oh, these are all the cliches of like, you go further together than, go fast alone, go for whatever that phrase is. I'm like, oh, I get it. And just sort of like all that sentiment that I remember hearing back at my corporate job, or like when it was, when the boss would come in or the CEO would come in and just talk about how much we all matter. And I was like, yeah. Like it just felt like it was all kind of for show. And I didn't really believe it. And now with my team, it's just like, the goal of the business has shifted. Like in the early days, the goal of the business was to prove myself to the world and make as much money as I possibly could. Now with like the team, it's this feeling of like, I'm doing this for you. Like I'm doing this for our team. And like understanding that things change and my team today might not always be that exact team, but whoever's on my team, that's like, I take it very seriously that, Kylie's now working for me full time. And it's like, this is what she's choosing to do with her career. Like that's huge. Like that has so much influence over your life. And the purpose of the business now is just to make that as positive of an experience as it can possibly be.
Yeah.
Because if not, like there's no point in the business existing. Like that's what it's all about. Yeah. So that's, and it's so much more rewarding that way. Like it feels so much better working, feeling like that's what I'm doing. It's not just to prove myself, or it's not just to money, although that's a good byproduct.
Okay. I want to also go back to something that you mentioned where there was a point, I think you said in 2022, maybe it was 2023, where you started realizing, oh, I need to bring on the right clients for me. I need to align the right homes within my portfolio. Can you tell me a little bit about that realization and transition and what that has meant for you since you have made that shift?
Yep. Yeah, I think that aha moment I think it actually came after I had gone to one of the Level Up conferences I've gone. It's been in Scottsdale every year. And I went to that, the first one, I think it was. So maybe back in 2022 or something. And there was a lot of talk about ideal guest avatar. And that was kind of the first time I had heard that about like designing your home for your ideal guest. And something about that sort of sparked like, what about ideal owner avatar? And so that was sort of that, like, it shifted into that. And it was, up until then, the way I had sort of looked at it is like, ooh, I could make $400 a month off of this property. Awesome. Like add it to the stack. Like, ooh, like $500. Awesome. Like that was all I was looking at was like, hey, it's a few $100s that matters. Not paying attention to all of the energy and back end stuff that had to go into it. And so at that point I had, that was after I had hired Kylie. And so I did have a little bit of overhead now. I had started adding some softwares to the mix. So there was some very real overhead. And it was like, okay, it's not just $500 is not just $500. Like $500 is $500 minus all the time I'm spending, minus all the time Kylie's spending, minus all of our software. Okay, oops, now I'm in the hole, And so that was, and so I had to start looking at it a little bit different. And I kind of at that point came up with the thought of, if I can make $1,000, it makes sense. So if I can make $1,000 off of a home, that's enough to give enough padding for my time, her time, and software. If I can make $1,000 a month, which is I think 60,000, is that right? 60,000 a year. So if a home can gross 60,000 a year, my 20% management fee is $1,000 a month. And so that was what I started out with. And then even that, I was like, okay, that is, the numbers make sense there. But if it's draining and if it's just constant battle with the owner, then that's no good either. And then another aha moment later on was like, it's really not fair to the rest of the portfolio, the rest of my clients, to have a problem child, because now I'm spending way more time on that and it's taking me away from the other clients. And kind of this thought of like, dang, it's kind of interesting how, like, at one point I'm looking at the portfolio and it was like, I should be spending the most time on the homes that are making me the most money.
Sure.
And at that moment, that wasn't true. It was like, I'm spinning my wheels on these properties that are just barely bringing it in. Like that can't be. And that's a result of the home itself. Like if the home has all sorts of problems that we're constantly having to fix things and notice things and communicate things. So there's that, there's how the owner is and how they treat you. And then how much money it makes. And so that's when it was like, making the decision, I'm not doing homes that the owner spends more than 3 weeks a year in, because that is taking too much money out. So I started just kind of building my ideal owner avatar, just kind of piece by piece. It needs to be this. It needs to be this. It needs to be at least 3 bedrooms. Where we do have a couple of 2-bedroom condos still, but I don't think we'd be taking any more of those on. So it needs to be, this big. It needs to be in these areas where we already have a team, where we're not. Because for a while I was just like, yeah, that's way. I mean, I took those Newport Beach homes out. No regrets. I still really like those ones, but I wouldn't do it again, right? Like I need to do it in the areas where I have the team. It's a big thing to build a new team, find a new handyman, even finding a new plumber, like when you have your little pod set up, that's what I kind of refer to it as. Like when you have your pod, it's like, I've got my carpet cleaner that I can call. I've got my plumber, my HVAC person. And if anytime you're expanding into a new market, you're starting from scratch on all of that. So now, and then the other thing too, with my team that really helped with this too, is realizing what a toll it takes on the team when we have, and by and large, our clients have all been wonderful, but we've had a couple of tricky ones over the years. And just like watching the toll, like I know the toll it takes on me, but like, I don't know, I guess it's my business. It's just sort of this like, oh, but I can get through it. But like, it just just watching how deflating it can be for the team to have an owner kind of lash out or be accusatory, and how it can just really bring down the team. Yes. It's like, I don't want that.
I had a scenario like that with an owner, and I could, see the reaction from my team members, and I ended up having to, I call it strategically separate. It just was not a good fit. Right.
Yeah.
And, I do believe that, protecting the energy of your team is so important. Again, we're removing roadblocks for our team members, right?
Yeah. So, and I think it's how you build respect and rapport with your team too. Cause I think in those times, there's been a couple of times where one of the team members will be like, like one of the owners kind of lashes out about something. And then one of the team members is like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I did this. I should have done this. And I'm like, hold up. Right. Like we're not perfect machines here. Like, let's take the learning. Like, there might be some lessons here, but as I see it, like you did your job. Like you did what you needed to do. And, being able, and like, you've got to know, like, that's one of those really important moments of discerning as like a business leader is like, if something was messed up, you got to find a way to communicate that as well. But like those moments be like, look, you did a fine job, and this isn't on you. I'm going to give the owner a call, and I'm, we're going to chat about this. Like, I'm not letting you take the fall for this, basically,
Yeah.
And I think those moments, like, I think a lot is gained from those.
Yes, absolutely. And, when you have conversations with owners, if you did honestly have an opportunity to handle something differently or improve it next time, owning that and admitting that is the best thing you can do.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, I think it's so easy for people to get defensive or not want to admit a mistake. And for me, it's like, if I make a mistake or my team makes a mistake, absolutely, that should not have happened. Here's what I'm doing about it. And I'm so incredibly sorry. Right?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. And those moments, and that's how you build that respect and rapport with owners and with clients. And people respect that so much. I know I do. And it's like, what can you say? If somebody's like, hey, I know I messed up and here's what I'm doing. It's like, all right. Awesome.
Awesome. I want to move to the lightning round. I could sit here and talk to you for hours. Okay.
I know, we're on a good run.
And we don't even get to half of the questions that I had planned. So I'll have to do a part 2 sometime.
Yes, we can do that.
All right. So I want to move to the lightning round. I'm going to ask you very simple questions and just ask you to answer with the first thing that comes to mind.
All right.
Okay?
All right. Yep.
First question is, where is your favorite place to vacation?
Sedona, Arizona. It's 2 hours away, so not that exotic, but I love it. And it's such a peaceful, I love going there. I mean, I have a couple homes there, so I will go and we manage up there. And I mean, knock on wood, I've never gone up there and had it feel like oh, I have to go up and
Right.
take care. It's always like, ooh, here I go.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel that same way about the beach. I'm like, oh, darn, I have to go to the beach again.
exactly. Like, oh, woe is me. Work is
Yeah,
so tough.
exactly. Okay, what's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
Ooh, Ireland's been on my mind. I don't.
Mm.
You asked me in another week, it would be a different place. But Ireland has been on my mind. I have never been to Ireland, and I'm curious to check out some of those like mysterious, more ancient sites out there.
There you
So,
go.
yeah,
And see some leprechauns while you're at it, maybe.
yeah, exactly. I guess I have some Irish in my blood, so I think I found that out and was like, ooh.
Yeah, that'd be fun to go check out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, next question. What's one thing you know now that you wished you knew when you were starting out in the world of short-term rentals?
Yeah. I think it is importance of team. I really thought I was going to do this all on my own forever.
Mhm.
Like I thought that was freedom. Like I thought that was just, I don't know. It's wild because I don't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. I thought that would be possible. Like I thought that I would just be able to make more and more money and have more and more freedom and just have it be me. So,
Mhm.
and I think, aside from the money, you don't have freedom unless you have a team.
Right.
And I think, like I said, the money aside, I'm so uninterested. Just like I was at some point so uninterested in going back to my job. It's like to think of going back to a world where I'm doing this alone and I don't have a team. I'm like, no, thanks. Like,
Right.
doesn't
Right.
sound at all fulfilling.
Exactly. And I love that you said you don't have freedom unless you have a team because it's so
Yeah.
true. It is so true. I've never heard anybody phrase it like that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Yep.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Don't give advice unless you're asked.
Ooh, now that's good.
Yeah, people don't like being given advice unless they're asking you for advice. So unless you're asking for advice, you might be better off just listening.
I know several parents out there that could use that advice.
Yeah, I think it's such human nature to just be like, oh, I know I've done that. Like, I know how, like, I can help you. And I think it actually comes from such a good place. And honestly, I think the reason that pops into my head is because I think I've very much leaned on the side of like, oh, let me help you with that. Let me, I got an answer to that. And then just kind of like noticing that like the responses aren't like, it's like, I just helped you out. Like, do you realize what kind of wisdom I just imparted on you? And just realizing like it doesn't land. And then realizing, well, it doesn't land because they don't want your advice. They're doing their own thing. And when they want your advice, they will ask. And those moments are always really great. It's like, oh, okay.
So good. Okay, last question.
Yep.
What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
I think I'm going to say my mom. I think this phase of business with her, there's just been something really special about having her like see me in that way, which I didn't expect, and something that happened a couple weeks ago is I said, hey mom, you don't need to be on the next team meeting. Like, for one reason or another, we're talking about other stuff that you're not as involved in. Like, don't worry about it. Get an hour back, go do something with dad. And she's like, oh, Brindy, I like those team meetings. She's like, I like to see you in action. And I was just like, I would have never looked at it that way, So it's something that just makes it feel. And now in the team meeting sense, it was like this funny thing that happens where I'm like looking on the screen and I'm like doing my serious thing of like, all right, team. And then I see my mom like staring back at me at the screen. And then I'm just like, this is all just like me trying to show my mom, like, look at me, mom. And there's just something that's like really sweet about that. And very grateful that we get to have that experience.
So fun. Sharing this with family. I mean, my kiddos work with me and, there are challenges, right? But I will tell you, it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding.
Absolutely. I agree
Okay.
with that on both sides.
Brindy, if people want to learn more about you and or how you might be able to support them in their short-term rental ownership business or even with getting started in this world, what's the best place for them to find you online?
Best places, Instagram, Air Brindy, right there on the screen. Air Brindy. I do have a website that my Instagram links to as well. And yeah, Instagram's best. I do like one-off coaching sessions. So if that's something you're super interested in, you can sign up for that. But really spending most of my time running my own co-hosting business.
Amazing. Amazing. Brindy, you are such a bundle of joy. It's so fun to talk to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. That was a blast. Thank you, Stacy.
Hey girl, before you go, grab your calendar and block out February 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2026. Why? Because those are the dates of the Short-Term Rental Virtual Summit for Women. Let me tell you, this year is going to be better than ever, and we've got some amazing surprises lined up for you. Stay tuned for more details, but in the meantime, save the dates, February 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2026, and I can't wait to see you there.